Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to be walking you through, as he said, there's going to be several slides, but you'll get the idea as we start to go through the presentation. But I do want to cover both the financials and supply chain management as we go through. Just to get started, kind of give a high-level overview for those folks who haven't seen anything like this yet within the new release of the Cloud Suite. Just to kind of give a broad overview, this is fully web-enabled, along with the intuitive interface. You'll see that as we go through the presentation. Embedded analytics, social collaboration, we'll be able to talk about that, and you'll see examples of that as we go through. Just kind of give you an idea of, to get into the applications. We have a new global ledger, for example, that has an expanded chart of accounts, and I'll give you some examples of that. Marking leading vertical specific features as we're going through. I work in the healthcare side, so I'm a little more healthcare specific. We'll focus on that a little bit, but you'll see examples of how to report on those and how you go through that as we see that. But we are going to be covering both the financials and the supply chain. So this kind of gives you an idea of what we're looking at. We're going to start with the financial side, so let's go ahead and get into that. The full suite of applications, you have the accounting, you have AP, AR. EPM is our enterprise performance measurement applications around the budgeting. We have risk and compliance, and we also have expense management for those. And that all sits on top of the global ledger, as you'll see, as well as the reporting side. To get into it, so we'll start covering the financials here as we go through. Again, I'm going to have some specific examples of the look and feel of the application, some of the new features that we have within the applications, and we'll be going through those as we see that. But we have a full suite of financials, and we'll be talking specific to some of these as we go through. Just kind of give you an idea, though, within the new look and feel, you have a lot of great ways to navigate now. So as you're going through the activity feeds and posts, when you have your collaborative applications, analytics, I can drop those right onto my page and see those as I log in. You have your homepage roles, which are going to be based on your specifics. So if you're a buyer or if you're an accounting manager, you'll be able to see what you care about within your roles. The way to do that is you can define your home pages. So as you come into the system, you have the ability to set those up. And as we're looking at the page, if you look up on here, these boxes are what we call widgets. And what we mean by that is you can have this look however you want. You can customize your page. You can move this up here if you want a report that you want to see front and center. You want budget to actual. You want to be able to manage your vendors. So you can set those home pages up for your role and to be able to see those as you log in and go on for you to start your day. We also have what we call landing pages. Landing pages are what you're going to see the tailored content for the applications themselves. So as you come into your home page, a landing page might be that I'm going in to do journal entries, or I want to be able to go in and see specific information based on what I do. So I can create those, and again, you can make these, personalize these however you want within the page, move the boxes around, have those set up however you'd like.
Right, and this stuff is, if I may, real intuitive and easy. This isn't something that requires IT support. Anybody can go in and do this. It's super simple.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a great point, because I don't need to call IT to say, hey, can you make this look this way for me? I just click an edit button, I drag them around and put them where I'd like to put them. Great point. One of the other things I just want to do is kind of get into some of the new features, and what we have here is what we call an action request. And what those are, they're delivered for, say, accounts, for vendors. You have a new project, I have a new item I want on my item master. And if I want to be able to put those through as requests online, rather than say, hey, I need a new account for my department, I can come in and put a form in and just say, can you please add this? This will be routed for approvals. So as we go on and take a look at that, I can see that it's going to be routed for approvals. And as that occurs, I can say I want to approve it, reject it, return it. But I see the information around it. And the point about this is I talk to a lot of customers, and what they do is they have this on paper. Yeah. They push paper, they make phone calls. But the beautiful thing about this is that it lets you have full audit trails of what's there. So if someone requests a new vendor being added, I can come on and put that request in. I can route it for approval. Once that vendor is added by AP or purchasing, it's on there, but I have a full audit trail of who requested it, when it was approved, when it was added, and who did the adding.
I mean, and you get some additional benefits of this type of functionality, right? Because you can capture all the information from the requester, the person that knows the vendor best, has all this, and you can have that at all times. You can measure how many vendors are pending approval, what status is this vendor in. So I think some of this stuff obviously is on paper for the most part, or via email. Some people have built some level of approvals with it, but it's not all in the same system. I think it's tremendous benefit that FSM offers.
Yeah, the folks I've shown this to in terms of customers, they like this piece a lot.
And I just want to add real quick that, you know, a lot of the things that Mark is showing us are examples, but this is sort of the mentality of how this whole software solution operates. So this same exact thing you'll see for invoices, you'll see for a request. You know, it exists throughout the system. It's sort of a philosophical way of operating.
What we like to call pervasive across the
thank you.
applications. And I was even told by even told by the HR people, make sure you remember this is over there too. So
it is, yes.
Then the other piece, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention everything's mobile. So as you're coming through, everything I'm talking about here, from reporting to approvals, everything's on mobile devices. So a lot of times, and examples of this are, I manage folks who have to submit expense reports. I do everything on my phone.
Yeah.
So if I'm traveling or if I'm out, I still don't have to make them wait. I can simply go onto my phone, I say approve, and those are done. So I don't need to log into a system to do that. And what's funny about that, you see a lot of folks around with customers, they'll sit there and say, well, I never have to go into the system. But I'll say, well, do you do approvals and things like that? And it's like, well, you may never log into a desktop, but you're on the system.
Definitely.
Okay. Now let's get to a little more details regarding the financials themselves. One of the big changes here within the Cloud Suite financials are the new global ledger. And we've expanded that global ledger that it has now unlimited dimensions, and I'll talk to those more in a moment. Flexible calendars, unlimited reporting basis. You have hierarchies now where I can define my hierarchies within that account structure and to be able to run those and be able to set those up for report. So I may have internal reporting needs, but I also have maybe state level needs or government needs that have to be reporting on a different basis and on a different roll-up. I can set those up all right within this ledger. The other piece, pervasive auditing. And again, I'm a CPA by trade, so audit trails were always big to me. Everything, field level audits are turned on all over the place.
Yeah, so if I may real quick, obviously the flexibility of the global ledger structure is, to me, one of the great capabilities that the software has. But just some of the little things like this pervasive auditing, what this literally means is that anywhere you are, you just right click and you can see every change and who made it ever there. And you know, I think it's the type of stuff that once folks are using this and get used to, it's just so useful to have that access at your fingertips.
Yeah, no more questions about who changed what.
Or flags to set.
Exactly.
It's everywhere, yeah.
And also within the effective dating, and again, that's pervasive across the application. So if I do request that account to be added to my structure, you can even say, when do you want it to take effect?
Exactly, be future dated for next fiscal year or anything of that nature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now to get a little more about the details of the dimensions, again, as I mentioned, I was an accountant by trade. When I created chart of accounts and systems, I never once heard a chart of accounts called a dimension, okay? But the reason we do that now, and it's very important, is that we now have created what we call embedded analytics. So within the system, the embedded analytics allows you to see those and report on those based on that accounting structure in real time. So it's almost a BI type structure. Well, it is a BI type structure. It's a data cube. So as you're coming through and creating those transactions, it's real time reporting. I don't have to wait till some batch runs at night to be able to get my report the next day. As you go through and create those and post your transactions, it's posting it directly to that.
Right, so essentially the data warehouse is part of the solution. It's not a second part that needs to get populated. And you know what's nice about this concept of dimensions that I think gets used a lot in reporting and so forth is, and you know maybe we'll talk about it a little bit later, is once you get into those concepts of just the self-service BI, these dimensions essentially let you create an XY and then filter by everything else. It just makes it very intuitive and very easy to use.
Yeah, so it's a big change from the way things used to be.
A positive one.
Yeah. As we're coming through here then, to the next slide, let me give you a kind of a story of a real-life example of how this new structure can be used. So what I'm looking at here, I just wanted to give you the players in this, and one of them's a COO, and they've been told that, you know, they've gotten an alert that I'm going through and I have a head of surgery, they're going to be a part of this play, and also the doctor, down to the doctor level themselves. Now again, this is very healthcare specific, but you'll get the idea that this can be used in any industry. Now what we have is a collaborative suite that allows those alerts to come out. And within that alert, I can see down here that it's an embedded report within that alert. So the CEO gets alerts that, hey, your average supply costs are exceeding your target values. I want to know why. So the COO has the ability to just click on that link, bring this up, very basic alert that's showing MedSurg 4A is exceeding the variance cost by over 25%. And again, she needs to know why. So as I come into here, she can click on that, just set that up, and I can see right here that MedSurg 4A seems to be my culprit, that's where I'm having my greatest cost overruns. So what they can do is send that information back to the head of surgery to be able to come in and say, okay, well, I need to get down to this information to get down to more detail. So the head of surgery can now see, based on the MedSurg 4A, where their costs are and where the biggest overruns are occurring. Within that, now I can shoot that, again, using that collaborative suite, I can go back and forth with my messaging very easy and have that link right here. I can embed this right within my report going back to the surgery center. Now as I come into here, the purchasing details of what I want to get down to. So I see that activity, but what's causing that? I can take that down even further and see all the way down to the doctor level now to be able to say who's spending what and where. And I can see that Dr. Smith could be my culprit here, that he's using the more expensive hip replacement and buying, you know, when he's going through and doing his major surgeries, that if I go down from Dupuis, and what I can do there is actually go to a what-if scenario embedded within the report.
Wow.
So if I come into here and I see those adjusted cases, I want to lower that if I can talk to Dr. Smith and say, you could go with more of the Zimmer product versus Dupuis and see what those transactions would come down to, that just by changing, oh, went the wrong way. Oop, one too many. Just by changing those 10 back, I can see down at the bottom level here, by changing that from 50 down to 5 surgeries, he's still doing the same number of surgeries, but I'm using the cheaper hip replacement, that I can save in excess of over $300,000. And again, obviously now, the head of surgery can go back to the COO and say, hey, we found the culprit, we've talked to Dr. Smith, he's going to change it back, we expect to save over $300,000 by year end. Okay?
So,
now,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, how did we accomplish that? That's the big question.
So no, I've talked to a lot of folks. Obviously, we work a lot in healthcare as well. It happens to be, you know, good portion of our customers, and certainly in supply chain, there's always a desire to drive down cost, and gaining compliance from doctors is important. And when you talk to the folks that are in charge of this, you know, the big supply chain companies, they say it's all about putting that information in front of doctors. You can change behavior if you show them, but creating that transparency and getting that data is really challenging today, and it takes a lot of effort. So making that easy, obviously, can have pretty drastic consequences in lowering those costs.
Absolutely. And this is how we pull that all together. We mentioned that we have the chart of accounts, we have the dimensionality within that level, and what we have here, for example, is this is where this is a requisition that actually created that service line and doctor level. So these are the Zimmer products that they were ordering for the orthopedic replacements. I can see that I have the ability to post that directly to the service line and doctor level within my chart of accounts. That way I can easily pull those types of reports that you just saw. So again, big benefit when you're talking about being able to get down to that true costing type level.
These are dimensions, and these are how they've defined them to make this work, right?
Right, and in my example, we've actually taken this down to the service line and doctor, correct. Okay. Now shifting gears away from the GL just a little bit, let me kind of give you an idea of on the payable side, for example. And what you're seeing here is actually what we call list views. And again, pervasive across the application. So as you see, I can see activity across the top. I can see here, and specifically on my page, I have my unsubmitted invoices that I'm working with. What's nice about this is I also have a search bar on any of this. So I have my unsubmitted, pending, approved, released, rejected. That'll my list of what those transactions are, but I also can search on those very quickly. So what this allows you to do is not have to run reports all the time. So as I'm coming to here, rather than simply say I have to run a report to try to get to this data, I can cut down on those types of reports that I have to do and be able to just come into here and very quickly get to the data that I want. And obviously you can drill down on any of this to get to the activity, all the way down within the invoicing to be able to even see the document that supports that transaction. So again, a lot of capabilities here within the applications that are, you'll see that, I'm going to show you more examples of that, but you'll start to see that as we go through. But this is the new look and feel within the Cloud Suite financials that really give you those capabilities, and again, across the board. The other piece I did want to mention, APIA, the AP Invoice Automation, that's now embedded within payables. So it does allow you to do those types of activities across as you're coming into here, and to be able to receive, scan and index, review, approve, matching, payment, and retrieval that are throughout the entire process, and be able to automate that entire process as you're doing that within the payables application.
And all of what are known as the landmark applications in versions 10 and 9 are all part of FSM Cloud Suite. They all basically merged in to the core application.
Correct. Where before APIA was a separate application,
It was, yeah.
It's now embedded within the payables. Okay. Another example is over in assets. Again, I think you'll kind of start to get the idea of the home pages, landing pages, that I can come into here and see what that, but I wanted to point out here within the asset process, tying it back to the procurement process, when you're acquiring a particular item, and it is a capitalized item or non-capitalized, I just want to track it for asset inventory purposes, I can do that here as well. But it does start with that entire process all the way through maintaining those items. If you have depreciation, post back to the GL, and reporting and analyze all the way through retirement disposal. So it does all tie back to the other process. So it's a fully integrated suite of applications.
I mean, that's always the benefit of having, financials and supply management integrated, is you can keep all those things connected.
And again, going back to an example of what we call an asset manager's homepage. So if my role is asset manager, all I do is have to log in, and again, you can personalize this to whatever you'd like it to be. But as you can see, as I go down my list of assets, this information will change and update to that particular item, and it will allow you to keep track of that. But everything's at your fingertips now. There's no more navigating down to this data or trying to run a report to get to this data. It can be sitting there right at your fingertips. And again, I can drill right into any of this as right back to the base record, but you have very nice views that you can go into to be able to access this data. Okay. Other side of that, projects and grants, and the reason I want to mention this specifically is grants is becoming more and more important, especially in the healthcare industry, when you have cost cuts and everyone's looking for money, right?
Revenue, yeah.
So the grants are becoming much more prevalent everywhere I go. And this is another example of a landing page, for example, of a grant manager. So as I come into here, I can see my grants that I have, I can see the activities, because remember we track their grant activities through and the costing through our project ledgers. And the reason for that is obviously that you can have your own calendar, be able to have your own set of books for that. But this is a quick way to be able to see this, and I can drill into any of this as well. But again, very easy to manage that type of activity. Okay. So that's really, I just wanted to I think you start to get the idea of the new look and feel, how you can get to activity within the financials. And again, I didn't go through all these examples within the financial applications, but Cloud Suite Financials will cover all these different areas. Okay. So let's shift gears just a little bit and take a look at the supply side. As we're getting into this, you can see here that you have, again, full suite of supply chain. Again, my example here is specific to healthcare, but obviously when you get into the applications, inventory, purchase orders, requisitions, that applies across the board.
Certainly. I mean, strategic sourcing is something we often see in public sector, different types of industries as well.
Exactly, and everyone uses contracts, for example.
Yeah, everyone uses contracts, yeah.
But just to get started into here, again, you're kind of getting the idea now of the look and feel and what these different applications look like. So here I'm in as an item manager. So what I can do is an item specialist homepage. I can see my items. I can get all the information around that item, everywhere from where is it, What vendors do I buy it from? Is it on contract? Do I have procurement templates that I allow folks when they're coming into the requisition to be able to see this on a template to be able to buy from? Punch outs, if it's associated to any type of punch outs, I can see that as well. So
this is a really great screen, right? And this is maybe a good opportunity to talk about some of the changes, because some of you are familiar with this. Look at this and you see PO13, PO25, IC12, PO15, PO20. Obviously those form names go away, and for good reason. I think it's really cool to go somewhere and have all that information in one place. It seems really intuitive to have that today, but for many years that's not how the software was originally built. And I think one of the things that you look at is this is sort of a reset conceptually. You don't need those screen names, just like when you go to Amazon, you don't go find a screen name for ordering something, right? It's intuitive how you use it. It's in front of you, you search for it, you find it, there's role-based delivered home pages. And I think that even though it looks different, it's a major step forward. I don't think adoption is going to be a problem with your end users, because they'll get used to it real quick. We've been playing with a sandbox internally, and you pick it up right away.
Yeah, that's a great point. I've talked to a lot of folks or customers who are on older versions, and when they show them this, that's their reaction as well.
It turns out you don't need PO20.
Yeah. And just to take it one step further, I took it down to the item itself. A lot of data around the item, image enabled, be able to get to that very quickly. If you know, it's one of the things you'll see here is you also have now, instead of for the real estate purposes, having a scroll,
the left-hand tab, they're very common now and very useful. They make a lot more sense.
Yeah, and it's really quick to get to your stuff. Now, I just wanted to kind of give you to kind of level set again here. So we're talking about end user going through and be able to push this all the way through. And again, what I'm going to just kind of touch on a little bit of when we talk about PAR leveling and patient consumption, again, very specific to a hospital setting, but it does let you go through and see that information. But very simply to start out with is the requisitions. So you have requisitions, again, you can order from catalogs, goods or services. They've made this the requisition self-service, they made it very Amazon-like. And it really is easier to use than going back through pages. So as we get into here, again, I'm going in as a requester. So as I come into my home page here again, I have all the information I have at my fingertips. I can see everything that I've been doing, where stuff is. If I've got down here, I've got stuff that's been invoiced that's there, but I haven't received it yet, things like that. So I don't need to call anybody or go try to request something from someone. I have it here. The other part of this, again, big part of the healthcare is our mobile supply chain management, where you're talking about receiving, delivering, again, working on the floors of the hospital with par and cycle counting, point of use when you're in surgeries, surgical instrument management. So those things are all still there.
And those things use handheld still, right?
Exactly.
For the most part.
So perfect segue.
Yeah.
This is kind of funny. Someone's asking me, where'd you get this picture? This is one of the folks that actually works for me. He was worked in a hospital as the procurement director. This is one of the folks that he goes, yeah, Betty was working one day, so I snapped her picture. So really, when you talk about handhelds, that was a good example.
So I think this is important. I'm gonna stress a little bit later when I talk with Richard later this afternoon. But this is tremendous opportunity. I think there's so much can be done with this, but this is not necessarily disruptive to the folks that are on the floor counting parts. They're still using the handheld. This isn't changing their whole world. So something to keep in mind.
And that's hugely important when you get into these types of things, where I do want to walk up to my bin, I do want to be able to pull something for a patient, or I want to have my par counts where I'm coming into here and I'm just be able to do that.
Yep.
That it automatically updates over to requisitioning that we need to reorder these parts or medicines, whatever that might be. I can go do that very quickly on the handhelds. Another big important point about this is, as we move forward with going out with a cloud suite financial supply chain, is, for example, now we run on Android.
Okay.
And when you're talking about that, I just heard a perfect example of this on Friday, where the handhelds being used at a very large hospital that I was at, are $2,000 a piece.
Yeah, they're expensive.
Now that they're Androids, they literally can get them for $500.
They're using phones, I guess, at that point.
And if you're talking that you're going saving $1,500 per unit times thousands of units in these large centers, that's a no-brainer. Okay. So if you're coming through here, again, perfect example of pulling something on the floor. It allows you to be able to track all that and then upgrades. And again, it's a fully integrated application around that. And also with dashboarding. So again, I just want to give you a quick example. Obviously, you can run any type of the dashboards to be able to have this. And this is just an example of expiring critical levels of inventory that you need to know that. One of the things I do want to mention along this as well, that's again, relatively new to the Cloud Suite, is inventory optimization. It was developed by a PhD at Princeton, that it's now an application that can be run against your inventory levels to get you down to the real-time inventories that you might need. And the cost savings, the ROI on those types of environments are tremendous.
Yeah, there's a gentleman, I'm sorry that I can't remember his name, that was out at ARM a few weeks ago that was mentioning this to me, and I guess it it uses your rate of usage and your projection of how much you're going to use so that you can not run out of critical items. Yeah.
Exactly. And to be able to reduce some inventories that might not be
exactly, that's the savings there, yeah.
And the other point here I just wanted to make, and especially in the hospital environments, is we do use, again, Clinical Bridge. So we are fully integrated back to our partners, Cerner, Epic, and any other type of
patient
employee base, customer, client, customers, whatever, that you have those fully integrated back to our applications as well. So if you're trying to capture patient costs, you're over on the patient side like that, like an Epic, we transfer all that information back over so they get those type of charges. Now let's shift gears here a little bit. Let's start taking it downstream a little bit here. So as the requisitions come in, you have your purchase orders. You get the idea. They have the buyer homepage, for example. Buyer comes on, they can see all the activity, any open requisitions that they need to address. They can see their contracts, they can see their procurement templates, cost messages, so as inventory or as an item goes through all the way through over to invoicing. So again, when you talk about the integration and the fully collaborative suite, that as you're coming in, those buyer messages will come off of if an item would fail matching, for example. If PO, the dollar values are variable, you have to come in and you see that maybe the items are wrong. What that does is automatically generates those buyer messages to go back to something like this. And again, as a buyer, I don't need to go run a report. I don't need anything. That's popping up as automated alerts right onto my homepage.
And I think what's interesting about that as well is, I mean, this is something that today we find ourselves assisting customers with, is essentially building a dashboard that highlights the information that needs attention, which is basically what this is. Right. However, this is, I guess it's a dashboard, but it's the application, meaning you can double click into that and it opens it. So that's pretty nice too. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is a one page I did want to show you because as I'm in the applications, I pointed out that you have activity across the top. I just want to show you what that would look like. So if I wanted to go out to my purchasing list and to be able to see that information, again, rather than having to run things and having to go to the printer and pull it out, I can have those reports. But I just wanted to show you this, that it's very extensive to what comes out of the box. Excuse me, that you're coming through here and to be able to see those types of reports. So when you do click on one of these type items here up at the top, you'll see what's associated to that, and I can pull those up at any time. Okay, so you have the online list that we showed you on the list pages, but I still can go in and run specific reports if necessary. Okay. Now let's take it one more step. So I've created the requisition, I've got the purchase order out there, and my stuff's starting to come in. So through the receiving, I have the ability, again, to do it through handhelds and be able to see that type of activity. So I do have that online. I can receive those online. I can even come in and show this physical signature that you're looking at. So when I'm coming to show you this receiving delivery process, for example, I can have it come through. The stuff comes to the dock, or it can go directly to the department for whoever ordered it. I can receive those goods. I can send that out for delivery. I get a delivery confirmation, and it's just like if you ordered a FedEx package. Somebody comes to your door, you sign for it. They click on it, I can see where that is in the process. So no more can someone simply say, hey, I never got that. I can pull that right up and go, well, I got your signature on last Thursday. That was you. So yeah, you got it. So again, fully be able to track all that throughout the handheld devices as well. Another piece of this is, and I just wanted to show you this real quick as well, is on the contract management side. Again, I have the full repository for all my contracts, be able to audit or edit and change those documents if necessary, keep a full audit trail of all that. As well as then if I come onto here at my buyer page, I can see contracts about to expire, supplier negotiations, contracts, on contract spend, off contract spend. So again, just another example of how across the applications, I think you kind of get the idea by now, the ease of whatever your role is within the organization to be able to see that type of data based on your job within the organization and how you want to see it within that. Okay. So that's kind of an overview of the supply chain side as well. Again, didn't go into all of them, but those are all here to be able to come in and to be able to see that type of information.
So we'll take questions here in just a second, but first of all, I want to thank you for coming and doing this overview. I think this is very helpful for us and for the Lawson community. Certainly here we've been playing with the software. We're very excited about it, and I think there's two major reasons for it. I mean, one is it's clearly a big leap forward in terms of navigation, and the flexibility of the global ledger structure really allows you to overcome, I think, some of the constraints or compromises that people made many years ago when they implemented. But it's also exciting because it's a sort of a unique thing that's going on in the Infor space, that you have these customers, and I know this isn't Lawson, this is CloudSuite, but you have these customers that have been on Lawson. A lot of them implemented in the late 90s. It was a big boom. Some in the early 2000s. So you have 15, 20 years experience. And it's CloudSuite, but it's the same DNA. A lot of those things that you showed us, we recognize those functions. And so it's an opportunity to leverage 15 to 20 years of intellectual capital that your organization has put together to improve its process. And I think when you look at a typical ERP implementation, the one thing the organization always lacks is representation of understanding of what the downward consequences are. So now you have all that talent internally. You have this understanding of how Lawson could work better, and you have the opportunity to not only execute that and take advantage of those increased reporting capabilities and that ad hoc BI and that improved navigation, and to save a lot of time with the process automation capabilities, but you have the ability to do so really disrupting your organization. And I just think it's so unique. And it's probably the only time we're ever going to see that type of change and opportunity in front of us. So we're certainly very excited about it. We're very grateful to be getting a look at it, and we encourage everyone to dig deeper into this.